Doctor? Doctor, come quickly!
I can't!
I just washed my hair tonight. It was nicely conditioned, so it'll look nice and fluffy.
Oh, my shirt is covered in cat hair, but you probably won't be able to tell from the
What?
footage.
Pussy in your bedroom? What happened? Anyway. Callum.
Anyway. Oh, well, in this fucking shit. I don't know any of these jokes. Fuck. Anyway.
Well, you should use your deduction skills to figure out the answer.
Is that? Do you want to retake that?
Why should Jaime Lannister no longer be in the King's Guard?
Because his son's dead. I don't fucking know. Maybe he's missing a hand or some shit.
You were close.
Sort of fine. I probably was, yeah.
Because he can't take the law into his own hands.
Well, he can take it to one. He can half do it.
Are you going to say that the law of Westeros is done with half measures? Anyway, welcome to day 13 of the Genesis of Androzani Yavin calendar for 2022. It's day unlucky 13. So hopefully none of you spontaneously combust while watching this.
Maybe that's why we're in such a weird mood. Maybe that's why.
Maybe that's why. Yeah, they'll never know what happened before this video.
Blah.
Anyway, links are in the description for all the stuff. So last time we had Oathkeeper, which was recovering from the Jaime breaking Cersei's chains, the previous episode before that. Yeah, last time we had Oathkeeper, we had the scene with Jaime giving Brienne the Valyrian steel sword. We had the mutiny at Crassus Keep with Carl Tanner capturing Bran, Joj, and Mira Hodor. Yeah, we had a whole bunch of stuff, really.
Yeah, a lot of stuff happened. We had a lot of stuff went down.
So, but yeah, what's your anticipations going into First of His Name? Episode 5 of Season 4.
Well, now, after this episode, we'll be at the halfway point of the season. And I think this season so far it's been quite a strange season so far, because we've had a lot of highs, but we've had the lowest of the show so far. And I'm hoping with this episode, or at the very least by the end, that I know that it's going to start picking up a bit. Because it's not been bad, it's been really good. I want it to start picking up now. I think this should be the point where we start properly going forward. Because the last two episodes, last two.
If we look at episode 5 of the first 3 seasons, all 3 of those episodes are absolute bangers. We have The Wolf and the Lion, which is one of the best episodes in the entire show. We have The Ghost of Harrenhal, which is a brilliant episode. That's the episode where bloody Renly Baratheon died at the start of it.
Yes.
And ended with Jack and Hagar at Harrenhal killing the Tickler. And that was the episode where you had the Tywin Arya scene as well, where she's like, anyone can be killed. And then season 3 we had Kissed by Fire, which was that beautiful character piece by Brian Cogman, where we had the Hound fighting Beric in the sword fight. We had Jon and Ygritte hooking up in the water caves, and we had Jaime give his confession about the Mad King in the bath. That was an amazing episode, Kissed by Fire. That's probably
the best scene for me, is the Jaime bath scene.
Yeah, Kissed by Fire is also one of the best episodes in the show. So yeah, there's episode 5 of each season so far seems to be kind of a marking point of the dramatic beats. So we'll have to see what they do in First of His Name. Anything specific you're thinking about going into this one?
The only thing that we have right now that we know is coming is the trial of Tyrion Lannister.
And
so whether that is now
is one other thing we know about. Jon Snow and his men going to Crassus Keep.
Yes, that is there. They're going to Crassus Keep. Yes. Where they'll probably have quite the shock with with certain people.
We
there.
also know
So
that Littlefinger intends to go to the Eyrie with Lysa Arryn.
He does.
And we can infer that Marjorie wants to become Tommen's queen.
Yes. But the one thing I would say that we're like, okay, this is going to be happening pretty soon, is the trial. That's the most immediate thing at the moment, in my mind. Because we've had 2 scenes with Tyrion in jail, and we've had many discussions about who will be the judges and all that, what people's thoughts are on whether he actually did murder Joffrey. So I'm eventually looking forward to. I imagine that's going to be a majority of an episode, and that'll be pretty big. Whether it's this one, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, you have to wait and see, because sometimes they do that thing where you think you're going to get it, and then they do an entire episode without that location, or even with just a little bit of it, and they focus on something completely different. They do that sometimes.
Well, with this season, we mentioned it last episode, I think, or maybe the one before. But this season, I think one of the best things it's done is it's allowed each episode to not be bogged down in everything. It's allowed certain stories to not be in certain episodes, so it allows other stories to get the time
if you remember, we've only had one episode that's featured the Bolton storyline. That was episode 2.
Yeah,
with Ramsay, Roose, and Reek. I guess technically, Locke has gone to the Wall. That's technically part of the Bolton storyline.
But the majority of that was the North story, which it has this. It's sort of like merging with it, or it's been attached to it.
It felt more like Locke was joining Jon's story rather than he was representing Reek's story, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Whether that then becomes a part of what the Boltons do and their sort of motivations going forward after the death of the King in the North, that will probably eventually come to light. I'm imagining because because the reason we first see Locke there's no reason from his perspective why he's there. He's told a lie to Jon why he's there, but we know. Something's up. We know because we're not stupid.
Well, we know that not only did Locke cut off Jaime Lannister's hand and isn't talking about it, but also his house, the Bolton house, was responsible for the Red Wedding, that killed Robb.
Yes.
So.
And they now know that the kids of the Stark, the 2 remaining Stark boys, are still alive, which is probably why they've gone north, because they know that they've gone north.
Exactly.
Oh, else why would Locke be there?
Anyway.
Why would he volunteer?
So, anything else you want to say before we crack right in? Because I'm ready for some Game of Thrones. I'm so ready.
I am ready to go.
Like as much as I am talking like a doomsayer and spreading, foreshadowing about the leaking boat that is Game of Thrones, I still love watching the show regardless of what season it is. I love watching it and talking about it. I have such an enjoyable time.
Oh yeah.
Regardless of when it was great or when it ended up where it ends up eventually.
When it wasn't.
Yeah, it's still an immensely enjoyable show to watch and talk about because it's so rich in conversation. That's the word I would use. Anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah, are you ready to crack into some Game of Thrones Season 4, Episode 5?
I'm ready to go. Ready to go.
No Peter Dinklage in the titles.
Oh, okay, we're not getting the trial then. Unless that's a misdirect.
Yeah, that is something that Dave and Dan would do. There's sometimes where they won't show certain castles and then they'll just have them in the episode anyway.
Yeah.
Or they'll show castles that aren't even in the episode.
Yeah, they do that sometimes. Like we haven't seen Winterfell for like 2 seasons.
Yeah.
But it's still burning down each time.
I think it's because like the template of the intro, you have to have King's Landing, Winterfell, and the Wall in every intro.
I'd imagine so, yeah.
Yeah. Oh dear, Marine. I forgot about that.
No!
I forgot about Marine.
Isn't it funny when they show Benioff and Dad and Dibby's names. It's when Marine shows up, when it's their names in the credits. Ain't that interesting?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Speaking of D&D.
First of his name, King of the Andals and the First Men,
First
and
of his
Lord
name.
of the Seven Kingdoms.
Man, were you ever expecting this character to be king?
No. Oh, no. Oh, absolutely not. Even when Joffrey died. Because I never thought of him.
The kid that nearly died at Blackwater, remember? He nearly died during Blackwater.
Mum nearly fucking killed him.
And now he's the king.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't seen what Varys has been up to lately.
No, we haven't seen him since the death of Joffrey. Yeah.
Our little secret.
Awkward smile. Oh, that awkward smile. That's funny.
Oh, I love that. Uh-oh.
She's the most entertaining, like, cunt I've ever seen, Cersei.
Yep. She's amazing.
Yeah, she is.
We stand. Oh,
yeah,
no, it's so awkward.
Yeah. She fucking hates her guts. But who doesn't she hate?
He sits the throne like he was born to it.
Yes. He wasn't, though, was he?
Sounds strange, I know, but I haven't even given any thought to it. What comes next?
Sure you haven't.
Sure. Yeah.
But I will have to speak to my father about it.
Lovely Mace Tyrell.
He's such a character without us knowing anything about him.
Yeah. He's just a dad.
We may be faced with an alarming number of weddings soon.
Oh, more weddings.
Oh, was this the Grey wedding?
Sister.
That would be a good one.
Or mother.
The scenes where Cersei can just be honest are probably some of the best.
Not you, Jorah.
That's a Tywin Lannister line.
Not you.
Not you.
It's weird seeing Sansa in something that isn't so saturated in a setting.
We haven't been here in a while.
Pull up your hood.
Oh dear.
Oh, not this fucking... Oh, it's grown a bit.
Uncle Peter!
We'll speak soon.
Painful.
No surprise.
Gave me those drops and told me to pour them into John's wine, my husband's wine. When you told me to write a letter to Kat, telling her it was a Lannister.
That's pretty big.
I'm warning you. I'm going to scream when my husband makes love to me. I'm going to scream so loud. You'll hear me clear across the narrow sea.
Oh, she wasn't lying. Fuck. That's traumatizing.
Oh, Jesus Christ, it's still going.
I know you don't like them. I didn't like your husband. Used to pat me on the back a lot.
Joffrey.
Speaking of fire.
Cersei. Walder Frey.
Oh, new names to the list.
Tywin Lannister. The Red Woman. Beric Dondarrion. Thoros of Myr. Ilan Payne.
Jesus, this is very long.
Would you shut up? And tell him to shut the fuck up so I can get some sleep.
feels responsible for you.
Oh, I know he does. I'm so grateful.
Why? Why does he feel responsible for you?
And I'm a terrible liar, so I should always tell the truth. And I swear to you that he's never touched me, not once, not ever.
It's all right. They'll execute that dwarf for murdering the king and you'll be free to marry Robin. You'll be the Lady of the Vale.
Agony. Absolute agony. Ah!
Fuck, I hate her.
Anyway, something a bit more light-hearted. It's like when you first try to ski and you don't know what you're doing. He means well.
Podrick's great.
What do you know about anything?
I bet his hair's greasier than Joffrey's cunt.
It was not.
It was? Dead like all the rest of your friends.
Oh, God. I've seen that
Your
clip a
friend's
fair
dead.
few times.
And Meryn Trant's not. There's Trant had armor. And a big fucking sword.
A poem, actually.
May I show you the gardens?
I couldn't very well refuse a royal escort.
No, you couldn't.
God, he's so smooth.
Mm.
Oh no, Podrick.
God, he's really trying.
Help me with these straps.
He's so fucking likable.
He just wants
He's like
to
the most
help.
likable character.
Oh.
Oh, here they are. They've arrived.
Hey, get up!
Speaking of hurting little girls.
Get up!
I think Rast and Podrick are on opposite ends of the likable scale.
Yeah, this is gonna be interesting. Oh, this is gonna be interesting. Oh god, something's gonna go badly wrong. Oh god, oh god, oh god.
Carl was the top-paid cutthroat in Flea Bottom. I seen what he can do with a knife. Have you seen what I can do with a knife?
We've seen what he can do with a knife.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
There were some hounds chained up inside. Closer we can get without the dogs sniffing us, the better. New moon tonight.
Mm.
I always like the girl with curls. Touch of class.
I fucking love him.
Jesus Christ. It's weird how, like, even though it's like Owen, at times he's unlikable, but he's got so much charisma.
Yeah, he's such a good actor.
Mm.
Sight. I can see things. And that's very helpful. Things that haven't happened yet. I saw you die tonight. I saw
That's it.
I saw the snow fall and bury your bones.
He had a good run. Oh!
Here, the Night's Watch.
Oh! Oh, God. Just
oh my
in
god.
time.
Jon and Bran are so close.
Yep. Well, they were last season as well. This keeps happening.
Lady?
Is Jon with you?
Aye. Brandon Stark.
See, that's smart of him. That was very smart.
Oh.
Oh, but Hodor, just keep screaming! Keep screaming, Hodor! Oh, okay, different plan then. That works, I guess. Oh. Uh-oh. Nice knowing you, lot.
Oh.
Oh my god.
Absolutely brutal.
Come on, Hodor. Can't.
Oh, he's right there.
Ah! Come on.
He sees you, he won't let you go north.
He's my brother.
He wants to protect you. He'll take you back to Castle Black.
Ah! There we go. Mini boss battle. Ah!
2 knives.
Ah! Oh, this is so fucking good.
You'll never know what that's like.
Oh, this is so fucking good.
Some old man teach you how to stand, how to parry.
It was an old man. It was Roderick Cassell.
The noises he makes are just so funny.
You know what's wrong with honor?
He's like fucking gremlin.
Yeah. It's like he's rabid.
Yeah, he is. Oh. Yeah.
One of Craster's wives.
Yeah. Yeah. He really is like a gremlin. Oh. Oh.
Fucking hell.
Oh god, that was fucking brutal. Oh my god. Fuck me.
Oh, and look at Locke as well. His head pushed off his shoulder.
They're gonna... Maybe Locke wasn't so good after all.
Where's Rust?
Oh, he's running. He's running. And he's probably not gonna make it.
Remember, he called Sam Ortali a coward.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Someone's gonna get eaten alive. Great transition. Oh.
We're in Seven Hells. Come here.
Yay! Yay!
I missed you, boy. Want to stay here? In Craster's Keep?
Burn it to the ground. And all the dead with it.
Ah, boy. This last 10 minutes really kicked it up a notch.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still not over that fucking kill. Oh
yeah. It was like a fatality, man.
That was so fucking brutal. That honestly might be the most... I think that's the most brutal death for me. Just getting... just thinking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, getting melted, your head melted by gold is pretty bad.
Oh, yeah, Viserys' death was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah!
So, Callum. First of his name.
Yeah, that was a good episode, and then the last 10 minutes just kicked it into overdrive.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Not me.
Yep. It was,
I guess that's what I asked for something to kick into gear, and it certainly did for those last 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, I mean, I think, seeing as it's a hot topic, I think we should talk about the mutiny at Craster's Keep, because it's on the mind.
I guess, I mean,
I
yeah.
think,
yeah, it makes sense.
I think this is one of, I wouldn't say it's the last, because there's other stuff, but I think this is one of the last times when Dave and Dan added something onto the books, and it was actually really fucking good. Because this whole little storyline they did of the Night's Watch going to Cress's Keep and avenging Mormont, you know, with Rast and Carltana and the rest of the mutiny. And then also tying that into Bran's storyline and tying that into Locke's little storyline with the Boltons, and then also with Ghost and Summer, like everything, all the little things connecting together. I thought it was a really cool way to add something onto the source material that wasn't there before. And I thought it was brilliant. I think the last 10 minutes of this episode is awesome. It's genuinely great TV.
Agree.
So I guess we'll talk about Locke first, because I think we need to get him out the way. Because in the novels, he's a combination of, well, Locke is a combination of a character. I think his name's like Yano, and then there's a Dothraki character who cuts off Jaime's hand. They combine these two characters together, and the Dothraki cutting off Jaime's hand is purely just like a one-note thing for that scene. And then the other character they'd renamed Locke. In the book, he gets sent down to Harrenhal, and he gets like brutally murdered by one of Tywin Lannister's men. But here, what they decided to do with Locke is they sent him to the Wall to try and get Bran, you know, for the Boltons, right? Because they know that he's alive. Because of what Reek said, and what Reek did, and how they know about it. They know that they're still alive, which was set up in episode 2 very well, because Locke went to, you know, with Roose Bolton and Ramsay and Reek. But I loved that how his whole reason with joining the Night's Watch was so he could try and capture Bran for the Boltons. But then Bran walks into Hodor and he fucking pushes his head off his shoulder. Which was absolutely brutal. Yeah, they gave him a little mini character journey for his ending, which I thought was really cool, because it tied into this whole storyline they added on with the Crassus Keep mutiny. So yeah, I think I think Locke is like one of those little characters throughout season 3 and 4 that they just did something really interesting with him that added on to his book stuff. And I really liked the way that they deviated that, and they let Locke sort of join up with this little storyline that they did with the Crassus Keep stuff. I thought that was awesome. It gave a natural link. It sort of gave a natural reason as to why Jon and Bran don't like see each other. Or at least they don't. Well, Bran sees Jon, but Jon doesn't see Bran. But it gives a reason why Jon doesn't find Bran, because Locke tries to pull him out and around and sneak out. And then, obviously, Jojen has to say to Bran, you have to make the decision to either go with Jon back to Castle Black or go to the Three-Eyed Raven, because you know that Jon won't let you. And I thought that was a really awesome dilemma for Bran to go through. But yeah, I think the way that they used Locke to tie all that together was fantastic.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed, for as little as he was in the show for, you know, just about a season and a bit, and especially this season, I really enjoy what they've done with Locke and what he's added to the show, and this little thing here to allow Bran to give him a dilemma and then give him a choice. I always enjoy these kind of dilemmas and characters that are always very interesting to pick apart.
Absolutely. I love how it wasn't it wasn't like they knocked Bran out and took him away. It was like, you need to make a decision. You know, it was a decision
it's not
thing.
Because you can do that well, but if they wanted to do something different, they executed it very well. I would say.
Yeah, they were like, you need to make a choice. It is your agency, Bran's choice that he needs to make between reuniting. I loved how it was. He realizes that Jojen's right, that he needs to see the Three-Eyed Raven at the Weirwood Tree. But when he looks at Jon, knowing that it played the Stark theme as well.
Oh yes,
which kind of represented like he has to. Like, this is him having to let go of that, you know. He has to let go of reuniting with Jon and his family because he has something else that he needs to see and do. But it's tantalizing to have these two Stark characters so close to seeing each other again, and then they just get pushed away again after all this time. It was a great bit of drama. I also thought I really liked the way they used the Reed characters in this too. With obviously Carltana was, you know, what's a harp-on girl with curly hair doing up this way? And then I love the way that they have Jojen not only see the Weirwood Tree behind Bran, but also be like, I can see the future, and Tanner is like, have you seen the way that what we're gonna do to your sister? He's like, no, I seen the way you die. And you can see his like glee and excitement because he knows how he dies, and then we see how he dies later.
Oh yeah, that was a really.
But yeah, Thomas
Brody
Sangster is a really good actor. Like he brings so much, I guess, otherworldliness to this character that can see things, that see these visions. You know, it's very clear that this, because Bran is obviously part of a northern family which is part of sort of the old gods and whatnot, and so is Jojen Reed. You know, his father was Howland Reed, who was friends with Ned Stark, and they're they are connected. And there's a sort of connection there with the old gods where Bran is the child connected with that, and so is Jojen for his family. I think that's really interesting, and I love the way Thomas Brody Sangster plays it so surreal. And that also ties into, I think, why I really like how they give him those like sort of epileptic fits where he foams from the mouth, because that's like the price he has to pay for having that power. Is that it's so overwhelming it could kill him. Which gives it, you know, it gives a reason for his sister to be by his side at all times because she knows how to look after him. Yeah, but also the dilemma for her because, you know, all of Craster's wives got raped at that keep, and Mira knows that, and so she was full of terror, but she had to stay by Jojen and Bran despite that. It's the way that they integrate all these different characters, and also Hodor as well, like the way they integrate all these different characters, and what
they even gave Hodor a bit at the end after he killed Locke, after he comes back into, he just looks at his hands and he's covered in blood.
Yeah, and he's like, he's absolutely petrified that he's like, have I killed a man? He's like, Hodor? Because Hodor is such a gentle giant, but Bran is using him for violence. And you just kind of feel sad for him, you know? That he doesn't really understand what's happening to him. But yeah, everything with the Bran stuff I thought was so well done with tying it into this storyline with Jon and Locke. Of course, the other side of that is the absolute Chad Carl Tanner, who had his final showdown. I loved throughout the show he's great. I loved when he in season 3 when he faced up to Crash, he said, "You are a daughter fucking wildling bastard," and then kills him.
And
and then in here, you know, we got the last episode where he's just like, "I'm a fucking legend in Flea Bottom," and saying that Rast looks like a ball sack and all that. But with this episode, he's finally like about to, you know, go to warfare with the Night's Watch.
Well, yeah, he's a unhinged gremlin in terms of how, like, his body language in his acting was fucking incredible.
Yeah, absolutely terrifying when he was, you know, about to like essentially rape Mira.
Yeah. It almost makes me sad that he's died because I was fucking really enjoying him.
Yeah.
As a character.
Yeah, he's so good. And then,
but like, as a mid-season, like, he's pretty much, I think I mentioned this last episode, or at least a couple of episodes ago, he is very much a mid-season mini-boss, but in the best way.
Absolutely. And then this is, you could technically like categorize this as like, I guess, kind of fan service, but it is the best way of doing it. When they did the final showdown with Jon Snow and Carl Tanner, that was so much fun.
Oh, exactly, yeah. Well, yeah, because sometimes fan service can literally just be good.
Yeah.
And it executed well, and it's fun because, you know, it's these things that we probably want to see, but it's actually done really well.
Yeah, I love it how
doing
it's like,
fan service sometimes is great.
They set him up as being a champion knife fighter from Flea Bottom, and he actually proved it. Like, he actually grounded Jon Snow with his knives against Jon's Valyrian steel sword.
Yeah.
That fight was so fun, and then I loved how they didn't show you. This was a great bit of direction, but they didn't show you. But it makes so much sense that it was the elderly. Well, not I don't know if it's the elderly, but it was one of Craster's wives that put an axe in his back. You know, everything he's done to them, and then he wants sweet revenge, and then Jon fucking shoves his sword through the back of his head, through his mouth.
Oh, God, I literally just put that on screen. Oh
Yeah.
god, it's so fucking brutal.
Yeah, and then he just slowly, but painfully pulls the sword out of the back of his skull, and you
Yeah.
could hear the bone cracking. It's like, it's so brutal.
Yeah, it's fucking really well done.
Yeah, but I loved everything at Craster's Keep in this episode. It was so fun.
Oh yeah, Craster's Keep was fucking great this episode.
Yeah, and then on top of that, oh my god, so on top of that, then Rast, the fucking coward, runs away, and after last episode when he,
we've been with since season fucking 1, by the way.
And also, he, remember in the previous episode when he poured water in front of Ghost and made him growl. In this episode, Hodor and all that, Bran and stuff, they unlocked Summer and Ghost from their traps and their prisons. Ghost got let out, and then he fucking ate Rast to death. Blindsided him. Sweet revenge. And then you get that beautiful moment where Jon reunites with Ghost for the first time since season 2.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Where you been, old boy?" Oh, so good. You just see the smile on his face. And then
beautiful stuff.
And then the old wife says, spits and says, "Burn it to the ground," and they burn Craster's Keep. And it was just so fun. It's a great little storyline that they added on to this for the middle of the season. I thought it was so satisfying. Like, what a great payoff to this little arc they did. With not just for Jon getting back with Ghost, not only Bran almost reuniting with Jon, but having to move on, with Locke's little storyline tying in with Carl Tanner's little storyline, with Rast's storyline. Oh, everything came together like here, and it all culminated really well. And it's so annoying because this again, like we said with the scene with Robert and Cersei in season 1, like we said with the scenes with Littlefinger and Varys in season 1, like we said with the partnership between Tywin and Arya at Harrenhal in season 2. Sometimes Dave and Dan can add stuff onto this source material, and it's actually really good. And it sucks that that eventually just goes away, because it's so cool that they did this, that they added this onto it, and it actually shows that sometimes they actually can write good stuff.
Yeah, if they put the effort in, they can actually. They actually, care.
Yeah. But we do have to remember this was back when George R. R. Martin was still in the writer's room. Because once it gets to season 5, he's gone. So, yeah. But yeah, I thought everything at Craster's Keep was a proper baller. I loved it.
I thought it was fantastic.
Oh, just hats off to Bern Gorman for putting everything he had into that performance as Carl Tanner and the limited episodes he had. He owned that character.
Just every time he spoke during the fight, he was just like this voice of, like I said, like a gremlin, and that's kind of who he was as a character. It's just like in his acting, both in his physical form and vocally, he absolutely brought this vile, disgusting person forth, and it was so brilliant to watch. It was so entertaining.
Absolutely. Yeah, and this is and they're really at this stage, obviously, later in the show we'll get to my thoughts on that, but at this stage in season 4 they are still getting the balance right with Jon Snow. Yes, he is a courageous character, he's an honorable character, but he's also a flawed character, and he's a violent character. He is willing to kill, and for,
Absolutely.
He's willing to kill for reason.
Well, yeah, he's willing to kill for not only his brothers, but for innocent people. That's the person he is, and that's the person he's always been.
Yeah. And he doesn't just sit around and do nothing like he does.
No, he doesn't.
Later.
If he needs to kill someone, he'll fucking kill someone, and with the brutality of that death, he'll fucking he'll do it.
And he is an emotional character as well, as we've seen with his relationship with Ygritte. He has a core that is wounded and there's a soft interior, and it is a lot like Ned Stark, because Ned Stark tried to uphold a lot of honorable things, but when it came down to his, close, especially his family, a lot of that got thrown out the window and he was a hypocrite. But I think the difference between them is that Ned would judge people over it. He judged Jaime Lannister because he broke honor, and Stannis Baratheon's the same.
At least that's what he thought.
Stannis Baratheon is the same as well.
Yeah.
Like, Stannis Baratheon's the same. He's just like, being on the throne is my obligation, it is my duty, and it will happen.
It is mine by right, therefore, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas I think Jon, it's more like he acts more on instinct and he's a lot more personal. But unlike
he's
what
very
he was,
inherently emotional.
However, unlike season 1, he's learned how to control his thoughts, and he's a lot more tactical these days than he was then. And especially given they're about to have an election for Lord Commander, he's really proving himself to the lads, to his Night's Watchmen as a leader. Especially given that he just conducted a successful mission to go beyond the wall to kill a mutiny. To kill a mutiny. Not only kill a mutiny, but he killed one of the most infamously powerful, knife fighters from Flea Bottom as well. With help, obviously, but, still. And I just love seeing the look on his face when he reunited with Ghost. Just the pure joy.
Yeah, this is nice.
Just satisfaction. Nice. Pure joy and satisfaction. And it's a small victory for the Night's Watch as they are about to prepare for a much bigger battle with Mance Rayder's army.
It was just pretty darn wonderful to watch.
Absolutely.
Like, I think that's probably since Renly's death is the biggest in terms of like physical reaction I've had. Like you'll see it back when you
even more than the Red Wedding.
With the Red Wedding, I was just like in shock, like, and more disturbed. With this, I was literally just fucking.
Oh,
I was out of my chair for several seconds.
yeah, it was a proper party, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, very hyped. Right then, so let's circle back to what the actual title of the episode is purposeful for. We have the crowning of King Tommen Baratheon, first of his name. And, of course, that basically had a domino effect and led into a bunch of different storylines and conversations between King's Landing characters. So, of course, I think the main one to talk about, because she was in so many scenes in this episode, was Cersei Lannister. I thought Cersei was fucking brilliant in this episode.
Oh, she was great this episode.
The way through. So we'll start with the conversation.
She's great in every episode, but yeah, she was brilliant here.
She showed so many different sides of her in this as well. So many. We started with the conversation she had with Marjorie Tyrell. That shot where she's smiling at Tommen and Cersei walks in front of Tommen in her view and then awkwardly makes her way around and stands next to her was just... It was
great bit of direction.
It was agonizing, but it was brilliant.
Yeah.
And
great bit of direction.
I loved, again, the way Cersei is just able to break through and just expose Marjorie's, lack of earnestness in her conversation. The way she's just like, he was my king, he was my husband. He would have been your nightmare.
Like I said during the episode, the best scenes with Cersei are normally the ones where she is like fully honest in those rare times. Like she knew how despicable Joffrey was, and she knows the facade Marjorie has on, so she just allows herself to be honest about how bad he was. And
she's also like it's a really strange thing because you can tell she despises Marjorie's guts, but she's also she also understands the reality of the situation. She also understands the lack of power she has over deciding what happens. And I think Cersei recognizes that. She just wants to subtly indicate to Marjorie, please, Tommen is a nice boy. She just did.
like the conversation they had about he's probably like the first king in 50 years who actually kind of deserves it because he's not a bad person.
Yeah. He's an innocent boy. And I think Cersei was just trying to indicate to her, please look after him because my first son is dead and I can't bear to lose another one. So it was a really good range of emotions from Cersei towards Marjorie in that scene. I thought it was proper, just brilliant portrayal of different motivations and whatnot. Like it is so interesting to see her hate her, but also ask her for mercy in a way. Like I guess you know what I mean. Like it's almost like Cersei's recognizing that Marjorie has some kind of power over her. And she's, trying to present that honestly.
Yeah.
Because she's actually scared of what
Mm-hmm.
will happen to Tommen now that he's king. Now that all eyes are on him.
Yeah.
That was a great scene. And then we had another fucking brilliant scene with Cersei and Tywin Lannister in his office. I fucking love that. Especially that line where he's just like, I didn't like your husband. He used to pat me on the back. You can absolutely imagine Robert Baratheon doing that as well.
Yeah.
It's like posthumous character development for Robert Baratheon. It's kind of tantalizing though, because it makes me wish I saw a scene between Robert Baratheon and Tywin Lannister.
Yeah. Yeah. That would have been good.
But that scene was also great for world building too, because Tywin Lannister really established what the Iron Bank is. I love the metaphor about them being a temple.
Because we've had a lot of references to the Iron Banks, and we have, with the Baratheon storyline, the potential of them getting a loan from the Iron Bank. This really showing it's telling us in a really good way who the Iron Bank is. It's not like one big person you go to for the loan. It's like a foundation. Like he mentioned with, if there's a temple and there's a rock falls off, a rock just takes its place.
Yeah.
The Iron Bank is a temple.
It's
a really fucking good line.
It is the most consistent organization in the world.
Mm-hmm.
For 1,000 years and more. The rules have stayed the same. You can't avoid them. You can't get around them. You can't make excuses. If you owe them debts, you owe them debts, and that is that. They are an absolute count of your currency, of your value, financially speaking. And as Tywin explained, the last Lannister gold was mined 3 years ago, and they are in a lot of debt because they've had a lot of wars, and they had a king who spent a lot of their money. And they've had a lot of weddings. Yeah. And they're still going to have weddings. And they're still going to have more weddings.
They've got another 2 weddings to come.
Yeah.
So lovely. There's been 5 weddings in the last season. It's alone. It's gonna feel like by the end of this one.
Was it I'm trying to remember what, because we had, I think Daenerys and Khal Drogo was the first wedding, and I think
that too.
And we had Robb Stark and Talisa at the very end of season 2.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And then the red wedding.
Well, we had
the purple wedding.
Well, we had the Tyrion and Sansa wedding as well. And
God, yeah, that's
in this episode we had another wedding, but we'll get to that later.
God, yes, there's so many fucking weddings.
Yeah.
This last season, like the last 10 episodes, are all, pretty much all been about weddings and how brutal they've all been.
Yeah.
Ugh.
In all their different in different ways too. Brutal in different ways.
Oh yes. Brutal physically and mentally. The latest one to Sansa, but we'll get to that later.
But yes, the scene with Cersei and Tywin was great. I loved it. It was like, and when are you getting married to Laura? Soon after. Soon after? A fortnight. She's trying to delay it as well. It's like when you got an alarm and she just keeps hitting the snooze button on that wedding.
She's trying to prolong it as much as she bloody can.
Absolutely. But yeah, I love that scene with Ty. Oh, and God, what was it? I love that bit at the end where he's just like, as your mother, that is your right. But as a judge, I cannot discuss the trial with you. And then she says to him, everything that you've built, everything that your life has been worth for is to carry on this family name, this lineage, this Lannister house. What would you do to the man who destroyed all that for you? Because the idea of that Tyrion was responsible for Joffrey's death. He is sabotaging Tywin's entire life, purpose. I loved that. And she walked away and Tywin just looked in silence. Oh, so good. And you could see him thinking as she said that. Brilliant.
Yeah. Bloody good scene.
Yeah,
Great dialogue.
Charles Dance is always amazing. Every performance.
Yeah. You can't beat great performances with really good dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
With good characters. Because characters are important to storytelling.
Yes.
They're very important.
A little bit of background that I really liked was that bit where they looked at Mace Tyrell and you could see him far away. You barely know anything about him, but just purely off the actor's expression, you understand the kind of person he is.
Oh, yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Then we had another scene with Cersei that was great, and that was the one she had with Oberyn by the water.
Yes.
That was another great scene.
Another bit of vulnerability, like a rare bit of vulnerability to Cersei is her daughter, and I think she did a fantastic job at displaying that when she told to give the ship as a gift and to tell that her daughter that she misses her very much. The performance behind that is so vulnerable.
She was genuinely sympathetic in that scene.
So well, yeah. That's one of those rare times where she is sympathetic, but it's one of those. It's the small glimpses of her that are, and she pulls it off so bloody well.
The sympathetic side of Cersei comes with her children. That's the.
Mm-hmm. That's the only thing that really gives her any sort of vulnerability.
Yeah, but I love the fact that Oberyn is smart enough to understand that these individuals are different people, despite the fact that they are children of the family that killed his family. Killed Elia Martell.
Exactly. When he talked about Cersei's daughter, playing with two of his children, he clearly understands that this is just an innocent girl. He's not stupid as I must kill all the... It's not one of those stupid characters you get in shitty shows where it doesn't matter the context of the person. If they're a Lannister, they all should die. All of them. One of those shitty shows.
Yeah.
But this isn't a shitty show at the moment. It knows its characters and how they're actual people.
Yeah. At this stage, anyway. But I really like the setup, though, how she used sort of comparing Elia Martell to Joffrey. Which is so interesting, because Elia Martell and Joffrey are very different people. But it's just the sense of losing a family member out of your own control. The Mountain killed Elia Martell, and she believes that Tyrion killed Joffrey. But they sort of relate to that, and then she talks about her daughter, and it's just a really nice moment between them. It's so interesting how you can have that, where Oberyn is there because of his hatred towards the Mountain and his hatred towards the Lannisters for causing the death and avenging. He wants to avenge his sister. I love that detail of he named one of his daughters after Elia in tribute to her, but he also feels pain every time he thinks and says her name as well. I thought that was really cool. That little detail he added.
Really good.
And also that bit just 8 daughters. 8 daughters!
Yeah. That's a lot.
That's a lot of daughters. I mean, Oberyn does do a lot of shagging, but that is a lot of daughters.
He does.
Yes. A lot of XX chromosomes. I thought that scene was also fantastic. I mean, basically everything in King's Landing centered around Cersei in this episode, and I thought she did fantastic.
Yeah, King's Landing was very Cersei-centric about what her position is right now. Because especially after the last 2 episodes have been very much about, whenever we've cut to someone like Tyrion, about his situation, we're getting very much, just Cersei knows or thinks it's Tyrion. She's very confident in that. And now we get these scenes in this episode where we show, she is a person with feelings and thoughts and characteristics. And I think they displayed it very bloody well in this episode, whenever we got to...
I think one thing I will say, though, is that we haven't seen that much of Varys this season.
No, he hasn't. He's got... The last time before this episode we saw him was in episode 2.
Yes.
And then he's been gone for 2 episodes,
now,
and he only showed up briefly at the start of this one, so we haven't actually had a scene with him since.
Season 3.
I can't remember if he did have a... Well, I don't think he even had a scene in episode 2 of this season, or even 1.
Well, he was at the wedding, but he looked around concerned before the death happened.
We've not had a classic Varys scene.
A dialogue scene, yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, though, that in theory could work if the reason why we haven't seen him is because he's doing something else behind the curtain.
At this point, that's what I would assume, based on his character so far established.
And yeah, we'll get to that later. At some point. If it was, let me just say this, if everything after season 4 with Varys was adapted the way the books are, him not appearing much in season 4 would be fantastic in hindsight. Is that true or not? I guess you'll never know until we get to those reviews. Anyway, let's move on to Meereen. I have some things to say about the stuff in Meereen, because
yes, one scene, and a very short one at that.
Yeah, so they did a weird thing with this, because this is also something that doesn't happen in the books. They established that Daenerys has these ships that the Second Sons took.
He just got some ships. He just got some ships, Connor.
Yeah, and they discussed the idea of her taking King's Landing, and then she says, how am I supposed to rule King's Landing if I can't? And I think they use her character motivation well to say, well, I can't just leave these, people behind that I freed.
It makes sense that she would go back and, free all the slaves that were put back in chains. That makes sense for her character. That's fine.
Yeah.
That part is fine.
Yeah, the establishment of what happened in Astapor and Yunkai, and how the slaves are put back in chains and all that, sort of means that, well, she wants to stay there because that is one of her purposes, is not just about Westeros, and that was a good part of it. But it is weird that they are establishing that she has these ships, because at this point in A Storm of Swords, she does not have these ships, and she is still fighting against the odds. Because she's not actually supposed to have that much power at this stage outside of the Unsullied Army and the
this
dragons
scene kind of felt like where they suddenly went, we need her to stay and it be a conflict. How do we do that?
Yes, but also they are neglecting all of the complex politics of Meereen.
Again, yes.
That are
We've got nothing of Meereen at all. We've had nothing of it. Like even in the first scene we got of her throwing the chains, which was very cool visually, I don't know anything about Meereen, really.
Yeah. Because in
I don't know what's going on right now, and they've really neglected to really go. I really thought we were going to have more of this in these, especially in these last 2 episodes, of actual things happening in Meereen, when really it kind of just feels like we're just waiting for something to really... And I guess this was it. She's staying... she's not crossing the sea just yet because she needs to free all the slaves. Which makes sense for her character, but it feels very arbitrary.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's like... Meereen in the books has more complexity in its politics than the entire of Westeros combined. And we're not seeing much of that, and that's a problem. Because the whole point is that it's supposed to be overwhelming her. It's the complexity of everything is supposed to be overwhelming her to the point where she's like, I can't handle all this.
The most complexity you get from these scenes is like the bit of dialogue where she's like, if I can't control like Slaver's Bay, like who should trust me? How would anyone follow me? And that's kind of it.
Yeah, and I guess you get all the different opinions from all of her different advisors, but that's not enough for her. She needs more inner conflict.
We get bits of that. Bits of that. This was, and funny enough, this was probably the most amount of conflict we've had with that, and it didn't really, it wasn't massive.
Yeah, and again,
also I did not like the way they. I also thought the dialogue in this scene compared to the rest of the episode was pretty lower tier.
Yeah.
I didn't like the way they like, also other news. All these things have happened. By the way,
they talk about how Joffrey's just died as well. Yeah.
Well, they don't really. Again, this seems to be running thing of we are getting news, but we're not getting the reactions of what you would probably think these characters would really react. Like, we don't really get a scene of them. Like, how good it would be to reveal that Joffrey's dead to these people. Imagine that kind of scene. Instead of just like, by the way, Joffrey's dead, and all the slaves that you freed are now
imagine her having to toss up and like feeling the temptation inside her to take the throne now that Joffrey's dead. You know,
we get a little bit of that, but it's
it's not enough. It's just not enough.
I remember when we finished this scene in this episode, I did not feel satisfied in what the context.
I think the only thing I really liked about it, I thought Ian Glenn as Jorah he did a really good performance in that.
Oh,
scene.
He's great. He's always great.
Yeah.
It did not just feel like this was a scene that I felt really, compared to everything else, it was not up to par.
Mm. And also the other thing with the ships, this ties into the end of the Karth storyline from season 2 as well. How instead of having her, run away from Karth like she does in the source material, instead they have her put Zaro and Dorea in a fucking empty bank vault and steal
when they
all
randomly
of his... and then she steals all of his ships. And just
when they randomly turned her assistant against her for no reason, and she slept with the guy.
Yeah.
That was so strange. Why they did that? Why they just got rid of her?
At this point in the books, Zaro is still very much alive and still very much trying to marry her, and he's
Well, he's probably eaten woman by now and is probably dead. So.
Yeah, but the thing specifically to talk about the ships, though, like, this is all part of the problem, is that it's not supposed to be... Like, the whole point of a character is she runs away from Karth out of desperation, because she's fucked up, and she's went to the House of the Undying, realised who she truly is, and realises how much shit she's in.
It really feels like, this season especially, it kind of feels like things are just happening for her. Things are going really well. Things are going really well for her. She's now got all these, this thing that's been a struggle for like her entire story, getting ships. Well, we have ships now. There you go. It just kind of feels like they've introduced this character who could just do anything for Dany, and that's kind of frustrating in terms of narrative.
Well, in the sense, because of the difference, like, because in the book she leaves Karth out of desperation, running away from the Warlocks, and that moment when Barristan saves her life from them is so rewarding, because she's on the run from them. She goes to near Slaver's Bay because she's trying not to die, and she also doesn't have ships, so she's desperate. So she's desperately trying to flee away. Like, this is a situation where she is on the run from the Warlocks, as opposed to what happens in the TV show, where she wins, gets gold, steals ships, sails there out of her own choice because that's what she wants to do, and then one Warlock chases her and Barristan kills the Warlock. Well, kills the spy, kills the Scorpion, and the Warlock jumps in the water and disappears, and we never see it again. And also, one other thing, fucking hell, I forgot about this. We haven't seen bloody Quaithe again. She just hasn't turned up, and she's so important to Jorah Mormont's character and Daenerys as well. But she's just not here. She's just not there. She's just gone and never to be seen again. So all of this dimension that's been set up and they're just not using it. They're just not utilizing it. All of the stuff that they set up in Karth, all the stuff they set up with the Dothraki in Season 1, all the stuff that they did with Savers Bay and Astapor and Yunkai, they didn't flesh that out the way it's supposed to be. And with Marine, you have an entire city worth of, you know, thousands of pages worth of political drama and intrigue and inner conflict for her character, tossing up all these different decisions, being so young and inexperienced and not knowing how to handle everything, and that driving her character insane. We don't have any of that. It goes swimmingly for her here, and that's why it's so fucking boring, because there's nothing happening that's actually interesting.
Yeah, it's just narratively, this is just very...
Yeah, it's so bog standard.
Compared to the rest of the show, it's so... Well, even then, it just doesn't feel like her just getting now, in this episode, a bunch of ships off screen makes it feel like, man, it really has... The struggle from Season 1 really has dissipated.
Yeah, and like, Jorah Mormont, Barristan Selmy, and Daario Naharis just feel like they're just there. Just there,
yeah, which is really
out.
Annoying because these were all, especially Mormont. Has really felt more like he feels like a parrot on Dany's shoulder at times, and that's really annoying me because he's so much more as a character.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely is.
This scene felt like here's what's happening elsewhere. There you go. There's your information. Now let's move on to the characters.
Yeah.
In other scenes.
Yeah,
it didn't really feel like a lot of character was in this other than Dany's choice to stay, which makes sense. Absolutely, that's probably the only one part I'm like, that's something. Everything else kind of felt like, okay.
Yeah, so for what it is in isolation, it's pretty bog standard, and it becomes even more apparent how much is missing when you understand what they're not doing. You know, if you've read A Storm of Swords and A Dance of Dragons, you understand what is missing from the storyline, and it's criminal that they're not using it because it's great. It's great stuff for her character, and they're just not doing any of it, and I don't understand why, because it's all right there. It's all there to just, you know, be used, and they're just not doing it, and I don't know why. So frustrating. What a shame. Anyway, let's move on to that, I guess, one sort of black mark on the episode. Let's go to the Eirich with Peter Baelish, aka Littlefinger, Sansa Stark.
Oh boy.
And Lysa Arryn. So there is one detail, I can't talk about the exact context of it yet, but there is one detail that I need to address about this that they didn't do properly. But I can't exactly say what it is yet because they do it later on. But it's in regards to the fact that they turn up near the gate, and it's only at that point that Littlefinger says, "Put your hood up." I think that was really stupid because I think it's someone as smart as.
They're literally, there's like loads of people around with like bows and arrows, and like only now was the hood up. It kind of feels. Yeah.
So I actually, you know what? I'm just gonna go with it. Because I think if you're a book reader, I think this is not a spoiler to say. They get around this when they go to where they go in the books to meet with Littlefinger to meet Lysa Arryn. Because what they do is that he has Sansa dye her hair black or brownish, like dark brown, so that no one recognizes her, which is really smart. And that's what they should have done.
Just wear something on your hair. Just something would be nice. Just to avoid any sort of.
But that is the perfect disguise. What they should have done when they were on the boat in previous episodes is, like, say the last episode is say, no, you're going to need to be disguised. Your name is going to be Elaine. You're going to pretend to be my niece, and you need to change your hair so that they don't recognize you. Like that is so much better than just getting all the way halfway up to the gate and then just saying, "Put your hood up," when they're already looking at her.
Well, yeah, they're like I'm looking at the scene now, and there's already a bunch of guards drawing their arrows, and only now does he ask, "Oh, can you put your hood up?"
Yeah. bit late.
Well, then, but like, if it's so memorable, which it is, the Stark girl having red hair.
Yes,
who's been in King's Landing
and also
for years now. Yeah.
How much more impressive would it be for Lysa Arryn to recognize her, even if she was wearing colored hair? You know?
Yeah.
But apart from that, everything else, though, I thought
everything else is great.
It was great, disturbing, agonizing, but it was fantastic drama.
It was very much self-aware cringe.
Yes. So the biggest thing that they did here, we'll address this bit first, is they revealed that Lysa Arryn and Littlefinger conspired together to kill Jon Arryn. Which was the whole plot of season 1. So in the end, Littlefinger was the reason that Ned went south, and Littlefinger was the reason that Ned got killed.
Yeah, he orchestrated it all. This was very much because I did think if that was going to get wrapped up at some point, like the actual death of Jon Arryn, and they did here. It was Littlefinger was behind it all, which makes sense for his character.
Yes. And I absolutely adore the obsessive, bipolar, jealous nature of Lysa Arryn.
Oh, she's fucking insane. She's fucking bonkers.
Yeah. So he's like, I'm going to bathe and get myself ready first, and then the Septon's already there, and they just get quickly married.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know what? Because it was in season 1 we first saw them, and that was the last time we saw them.
Yeah.
With the son now being a bit grown, in season 1 he was a lot more like very like young, like a mother's child, very mama's boy. Here he kind of still was, but a little bit more grown, a bit more mature, a little bit, but very slightly. When you compare that to the mother, who's still fucking clearly bonkers.
Yeah, he's definitely disobeying her a little bit now, compared to before.
A little bit, yeah.
Whereas, like, in season 1, he was just kind of like her cheerleader.
Well, yeah, annoying child 101.
Yeah, but how Littlefinger gave him that glass bird and then he just threw it down the moon door to see it fly.
Yeah. I wanted to make the little man fly.
Oh, and the most uncomfortable part was when he went up to Sansa and he just casually was just like, "Oh yeah, no, I heard your mum died and your brother got his head chopped off and they put a wolf on it and she's like, yeah, and my dad died too. Yeah." And it's just like doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, my dad died too. They killed my dad too.
Yeah, just these very sensitive topics, and he's just talking about them as if it's some game.
At this point, he's probably around 10 or whatever. I don't know. He's still very young. Not self-awareness is not one of his strong suits as a child.
Absolutely. Yeah, wretched child. And then, oh my god, the horrifying thing of, like, as the Septon is walking, she's like, "I'm going to scream tonight," and then you hear it. You hear it in the next shot.
God. You'll see, when you look back, you'll see me cringing from just my entire face is filled with
it's
agonizing cringe.
It's pure pain.
Yeah.
Ugh. It's kind of great that they gave us that satisfying bit at Crassus Keep at the end to, like, sort of...
Yeah.
Contrast to the absolute, like, just uncomfortable nature of the Vale storyline.
Yeah.
But then, of course, I think my favorite scene was the one between Lysa Arryn and Sansa when they ate the lemon cakes. That was just... that was some psycho shit that she did right there, where she was, like, holding her hands tightly.
Oh, yes.
And it's just like... And he loved Catelyn, and Catelyn didn't love him back. She loved him as much as those holes in his bottle. Has he told you about those holes in his bottle? What has Peter done to you? Has he made you pregnant? Oh, it's just...
Yeah,
she's so anxious putting 2 and 2 together and getting 10. And then Sansa starts crying. He just calls me a stupid girl. And then she hugs us. It's all right, Sansa. Oh, it's so terrifying. It gives me like... Oh, it makes my hairs stand up thinking about that scene. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
She's so crazy.
Yeah, Sansa's gone from like
the actress does a fantastic job displaying that fucking bonkers mindset.
Absolutely. Sansa's escaped one hostile place and gone to another.
Mm-hmm.
And I just loved when Lysa Arryn, she was like airing everything out to Peter Baelish. And you could see his little face like just sort of darting around like, she's saying this very loud, there might be people that can hear us. This is putting out plans. And as soon as she talks about Jon Arryn, he like kisses her to shut her up.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Tells her just like fading, only talking about it will bring it to life.
So I think if they had set up the black hair, like the dark brown hair dye and the Elaine stuff earlier, I think this Eirich storyline would have been pretty pitch perfect. I just think that one element lets it down a bit, unfortunately. The whole disguise being not what it's supposed to be, which I think is a really stupid mistake. Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed there.
So yeah, that's we're gonna have to endure a bit more of that torture going forward, I imagine.
It's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought the area has always been one of the most interesting locations as well. It's like visually stunning, you know, the whole set and everything. And we got to see more of it, like not just the moon door like sort of room, but we also got to see like the way the bedrooms look. And we've seen the prisons before. We did see when Catelyn visited her, we saw like that other sort of, I guess, lounge room as well. But yeah, and also in terms of world building, Lysa Arryn commented on, you know, the annoyances of the other Lords of the Vale and how they get in her way. That was a really good bit of, you know, world building for that location as well. Thought they did that well, very well. This is all like Littlefinger's plan coming together. Conspired to kill Jon Arryn, and then in season 1 he talked about how he was going to go marry Lysa Arryn, and now he actually is doing it. Like this for the Eirich is paying off things that were set up in season 1, all the way to the middle of season 4, which I think is a nice bit of long-term payoff. I mean, this episode as a whole kind of had a bit of long-term payoff in a way, because you had the stuff with the Jon storyline as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that was very much a running theme of this episode.
Yeah, and actually, speaking of season 1, we had another scene that referenced it, and that was the scene between Arya and the Hound.
Yes.
We had two bits with them. Because firstly, she was reading off her names, and then the last name she read was the Hound's name, which was cool.
Oh yes, very bog standard stuff. Really good fun stuff there.
Yeah, but I like that Hound's line. He's just like, "What would you do if your brother was here?" I tell him to shut the fuck up so I can get some sleep.
Well, yeah, he very much just that's what he does. Very much when he ever gets a serious question, he very much just redirects it and just doesn't answer.
He doesn't want to talk about the mountain because that cuts deep, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get that hilarious scene where she tries to do the Syrio Forel water dancing, and the Hound's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And this is also tying back to season 1 because that was when Syrio Forel was teaching her how to use a sword, and it's just like, the greatest swordsman of the world didn't have a fucking sword. Yeah, the Bravosi, the cunts, all of them. And then he's just like, how did he die? He was killed by Meryn Trant. He was killed by fucking Meryn Trant.
Meryn fucking Trant.
Yeah. Any horse boy with a sword could kill 3 Meryn Trants. And then he's just like, what can you do? And she tries to pierce his armor, doesn't work. Smacks her on the face, lands on the ground, and he's like, Meryn tried to kill Syrio Forel because he had armor and a big fucking sword.
Mm-hmm.
Great stuff. Just
great.
I
really enjoyed that scene quite a bit.
Great, but just sort of developing the dynamic of their characters, you know. Great. They have great comedic chemistry. Those two.
They do, yeah. That's probably the most enjoyment he's gotten out of the last sort of couple seasons.
This episode was the happiest I've probably seen the Hound ever.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But also, I like the detail of like when he saw that he woke up and he saw that she wasn't there. He was concerned. He's like, "Oh shit, where has she gone?" Like almost like he's lost her. Yeah. And he was almost delighted to see her. Yeah, great stuff. And then we had the scenes with Brienne of Tarth and Podrick Payne.
These are also very funny and very great. And Podrick's such a sweetheart.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, I love their scenes together. Just like, have you ever cooked a rabbit before? No, my lady.
No.
And she's like, what? She's like, wanting to be all tough and take off her armor herself, but she can't because it's like this really high grade armor that she doesn't understand. That Jaime's given her.
Well, yeah, because the straps are way too tight.
Yeah.
So yeah,
there's a great little commitment, especially with him trying to ride the horse as well, and he can't do it properly.
Yeah, that was great. That was great.
Yeah. So good. But then I think one of my favorite bits is like when all the fun stops and she says, "Have you ever killed a man?" And he remembers the Blackwater, and he was, all the charm went away, and he's like, "Yeah," put a spear through the back of his head. And he kind of, I think Podrick, like even though he saved Tyrion's life, he kind of hates in a way that he's killed someone because it's not what he wants. He doesn't want to be remembered as a killer, you know, because Podrick's a squire, he means well. But he only did it to defend Tyrion's life. But I thought that was a really interesting detail there when, you know, all the fun suddenly stopped for a second. And he sort of just took a moment to comment on, yes, I have killed someone. And Brienne kind of...
When he got serious, it was really good.
And Brienne was like quite surprised by that. And then, of course, she lets him undo her armor, and he smiles.
Yeah, that little smirk he gives is just, and he's so eager to do it.
Yeah.
It's just very funny.
God, fucking Dave and Dan are doing Podrick. Fucking Podrick Payne better than Daenerys. What's going on? I don't understand it. Oh, well. Whatever. Yeah, anything else you want to say about any of those characters?
I just really enjoyed that scene. Podrick's one of my most likable characters, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. I think outside of the Marine tisms and the Sansa disguise, I think everything else was rock solid.
Agreed.
And the stuff in
10 minutes was fantastic.
Yeah, the stuff in King's Landing with Cersei, the stuff in the Eirich after the gate, and everything at Crassus Keep was fucking great.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, mostly really great. In terms of how this was received, this episode received universal acclaim from critics. They say only slow by Game of Thrones standards, but First of Its Name demonstrates how carefully constructed this show has been since season 1. Very good point, because a lot of this episode related to things from season 1.
Yeah.
Gave us a much-needed look back into some past events on the series. He highlighted the revelation that Littlefinger's actions put the story of the entire series into motion. Yeah, I think that's kind of the theme of the episode, really, is that it's looking back on the past whilst also looking forward to the future, because obviously Tommen is now the new king. And as you kind of commented at, you know, the start of season 4, we're like in phase 2. And then they're like, at this episode, they're kind of, everything's sort of at a crossroads, looking back at the past and looking to the future. Because we have, you know, things remembered and then things going forward. Like with the Crassus Keep storyline, that's all ended now. That's a closed book now. You know?
Yeah, that's all done.
They burnt it down. And like Bran also looking back to the past, to his life at Winterfell with the Starks, and he's having to move on from that as well. Move on to his new journey. Sansa looking behind to King's Landing and Winterfell now at the Eirich. Looking back at the Jon Arryn stuff. Arya looking back at Syria Farrell from season 1. And all of a list of names. I think that this episode does a really good sort of retrospective events for characters and uses that well to develop them, and then it kind of sets motion going forward. So that's a really nice way to tie all that together as a sort of connective piece. So yeah, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, maybe skating on thin ice, but they still pulled out a mostly very good episode.
Yeah, mostly good, and with some fantastic scenes.
The boat is leaking still in some areas, but I think I have to put my hats off to them for this entire Mutiny at Crassus Keep storyline that they added to this season, because I thought it was really creative. It gave characters something to do that you never thought they would. It gave Locke a really good ending. It gave Rasty a really good ending. It gave Carl Tanner a great ending. You even got some small characters out of the Crassus wives. And the implications this is going to have now that the White Walkers now can no longer receive babies. What are they going to do about that? You know, what are the implications of that? With the reuniting with Ghost and all that, how that tied into Bran's storyline. I think the way they did all that was very, very, very clever. And especially given that it's not adaptation, this is something they've added in. So well done for that, I would say. But criticism where it's due. The Marine stuff needs to be way better than this. And
yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. It does.
Not choosing to have Sansa be disguised is also stupid. So
bit silly.
We kind of got. It's interesting how this, ironically, right? Talking about looking back and looking forward, we got a bit of both sides of Dave and Dan this episode. We got the really good side of them, and we got the really bad side of them as well.
Because I just want, because it just kind of feels like we're just, like I mentioned this, we are really, let's be honest, we are just waiting for Dany to cross the sea. That is pretty much what we're doing right now. They have not really giving us a reason to care about this journey now.
Though. You shouldn't be waiting for that. What you should be doing is following her self-discovery. You know, that's
exactly,
what
and we're not really getting that sort of ideas. We're getting, the most dilemma she's facing is whether she should free more slaves or not, which makes sense for her character. But that's sort of it. You need a bit more than that.
You know, I think I said this in the...
She's never ruled a city before. She's never ruled anything on this scale. And we're not really getting that sort of conflict of like how the fuck what she meant to fucking do.
Marine is one of
free the slaves and everyone will be happy, and that's pretty much it.
Marine is arguably one of, if not the hardest city to rule in the entire world. And she's just says that she's going to do it. Yeah. Like, you've seen it on the map. You've seen how fucking massive that city is. It's absolutely gigantic.
Oh, it's bloody massive.
With a whole culture and a whole history and... Oh, God. Like, imagine
if she... Yeah.
Imagine if, like, I don't know, like the Prime Minister of New Zealand decided, I'm going to rule Russia. Just do it the same way. Like, imagine how complicated that would be. If she just said, I'm just going to go and rule Russia. Okay, how are you going to do that? Good luck. You know, this is, I think the Marine is a case of disappointing, underutilized, lackluster world building to benefit this character's journey. That's how I would sum it up. However, one thing I will say about this episode, I thought Michelle McLaren's direction was really good all throughout. I thought she did a fantastic job. I actually think she possibly even did better this episode than she did in the last one.
I think the direction in this episode was pretty darn masterclassful.
Absolutely, everything at everything at the area looked incredible. Everything at Crassus Keep was so well shot with the action scenes. Especially loved that shot where Jojen sees the werewood tree behind Bran. That was awesome. That was a great bit of supernatural cinematography. Everything in King's Landing, I mean, usually looks great anyway, but it was so vibrant. All the blocking in the camera shots, especially with the stuff in Tywin's office, the way that they showed the faces and they used background blurring as well, so you could focus on the facial acting, was great. The way that they had Cersei walk in front of Tommen when Marjorie was looking at him was a great shot.
That was so fucking good. That was bloody good.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, just on the whole, everything looked fantastic. And the cutting, I think the cutting between Brienne and Podrick as well was really well done. So yeah, well done, Michelle McLaren, for that one. And I believe this is her last episode on Game of Thrones as director, so good one to go out on.
What? That sucks.
Yeah.
That's fucking shit, because she's really good.
Yeah. Unless I'm mistaken, but I believe it is, yeah.
I hope you're wrong.
I think it was
a real shame if that's the case.
I think it was like 2 episodes of season 3 and 2 episodes of season 4, and that was it.
Oh man.
Anyway, so music. Raymond Javadi, always great, and he was fantastic in this. So, so much tension in the dialogue scenes, and then there was a lot of scenes where he refrained from using a lot of music to sort of just let the actors do all the talking. But I think a lot of my favorite music happened in the last 10 minutes at Crassus Keat. The action sequences were brilliantly scored with all the dramatic music, but I think my favorite piece of music in this episode was when Bran had to make the decision and the Stark theme played.
Oh yeah, Stark theme is bloody glorious.
Full of emotion. So yeah, shall we get onto the tracks for this episode?
Yes.
Alright. Our first track is called Craster's Keep. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that plays over the scene when they burn it down. I think.
Probably.
Yeah.
I imagine it would be.
That sounds about right to me. Just a nice. I like the sort of sentiment at the start, and then it goes into the action beats of the drumming. Resembling.
They play it and then it goes into the credits. That's what happens.
You can certainly hear like the sort of closing the book on this story. You know, there's a finality to this song.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Really good stuff. Raymond Javadi just gets it. He just gets it so much.
He does.
Yes. Then the next track. Now, I think this is interesting. I'm just having a look up. Huh. Okay then. The next track is from the season 1 soundtrack.
Oh my god, we're going back.
Mm-hmm. It is called The Night's Watch. Yeah, there's a specific grandeur they use to the Night's Watch that sounds different to everything else. It almost has like a spatial thing to it.
Well, it feels more. This one feels a lot like grandiose. It feels like, you know.
I mean, I think the expression is. I think the expression is the reason why it feels that way is because the Night's Watch represents a whole group of men with one cause. And that's why you have so many of the same. Like, I guess it's all these different instruments doing the same thing, you know, which represents the men of the Night's Watch and what they're doing. And that's why it feels so spatial. So, yeah, really fitting for them, I'd say. He's just so good at crafting music for this show. That just fits everything.
Yeah, he is. He certainly is.
Irreplaceable. So, trivia time. This episode finally reveals the mystery of who murdered Jon Arryn during most of King Robert Baratheon's reign, as whose death set the main narrative for the very story in motion for the first episode of the TV series. Littlefinger orders Jon's own wife Lysa to poison him and then had Lysa write a letter to her own sister saying that the Lannisters were responsible. You remember that letter? Catelyn got the letter and then she told Ned, and he had to make to make the decision. It's interesting how that happened. You had that moment. You had that moment of conflict where Ned had to make that decision, and in this episode, Bran had to make a decision. He was torn. But
yeah, he was.
And it was very clear that, well, at least for his livelihood's sake, he made the wrong decision. At least in that point in time. Whether or not Bran made the right decision, I guess we'll find out. So yeah, the letter is what led Eddard to accept Robert's offer to be the new hand to discover what happened to Jon Arryn. In What Is May Never Die, Tyrion interrogated Pycelle, who explained that Lord Arryn discovered that none of Cersei's children were really Robert's. While Pycelle is a Lannister agent, he explained that before he could deal with them, somebody else already poisoned Jon Arryn, and Pycelle simply assumed it was one of Cersei's other spies. Pycelle realized Lord Arryn was poisoned, but withheld treatment from him to ensure that he would succumb. Moreover, in Season 1, when Catelyn asked Varys and Littlefinger about the Valyrian steel dagger that the cat's paw assassin attempted to kill Bran with, Peter Baelish lied and said it belonged to Tyrion Lannister, even though Tyrion pointed out to Catelyn that only an idiot would arm an assassin with a blade publicly known to be his own. Baelish is not a Lannister agent, however, because he then had Joffrey poisoned, as he revealed to Sansa, or at least he was part of it, and Littlefinger is the true architect of the entire War of the Five Kings, intentionally tricking the Starks and Lannisters into fighting a devastating war in order to exhaust them both and cause the political chaos that creates the opportunities he thrives on, which ties into that speech he gives Varys in The Climb about chaos as a ladder, which is what his entire... He knew everything that was going to happen. He knew the red wedding was going to happen. He knew the purple wedding was going to happen at that point in time, which is why he sails away so that he's not seen while it's all happening and he can retrieve Sansa at the opportune moment. And he's going to let all of these families tire, wear out, and exhaust so that when they all crumble, he can climb that ladder to the top and get everything he wants. So this episode also explains why in Season 1 Lysa Arryn bizarrely refused to send the armies of the Vale to join forces with the North and the Riverlands against the Lannisters. At the time, the only excuse she gave to Catelyn was that she was worried for her son's safety, even though she alleged that the Lannisters had killed her own husband and the boy's father. In reality, Lysa betrayed her own family because of her fanatical obsession with Peter Baelish. She didn't join forces with the Starks because this might have tipped the odds against the Lannisters and quickly ended the war, while Littlefinger wanted to drag out the war to create as much chaos as possible. Although Lysa is obsessed with Littlefinger, Littlefinger's own obsession, Catelyn, was killed due to the events he set in motion. So in a way, Littlefinger had caused events to happen that led to Catelyn's death, which is also another nuance in that storyline. And the revelation about Arryn's death refutes Ned's suspicion in The Wolf and the Lion that Sir Hugh was perhaps the poisoner, and that he was deliberately killed by the Mountain at the Lannisters' command in order to silence them. Since the Lannisters had nothing to do with Arryn's death, they had no reason to have Hugh killed. The Mountain might have killed them simply due to his murderous nature, so Ned had false ideas about that and false assumptions. Lysa's intention to marry Sansa to her first cousin Robin Arryn. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot to mention that. She wants Sansa to marry Robin Arryn.
Yep. Yeah, that's...
So it's unusual in this context due to his age and stunted mental abilities. Is not considered incest in the Seven Kingdoms, as in real-life aristocratic families, first cousins have been known to marry in Westeros to secure political alliances. Tywin Lannister's own wife, Joanna Lannister, was his first cousin. Her surname was already Lannister before they married. Eddard Stark's own parents, Rickard and Lyanna, were first cousins once removed. Sansa mentions that lemons for lemon cakes do not grow as far north as the Vale. Citrus fruits in Westeros only grow in the southernmost kingdom in Dorne, which ties into Oberyn, his storyline. The novels later explicitly state, and actually that makes sense, right? Oberyn would have brought lemons from Dorne to the wedding to provide for the feast as a gift, and Baelish would have had them stolen. So that actually makes sense how he had those lemons brought to the Vale. The scene in which Lysa gives Sansa lemon cakes pretending to be a caring aunt and then suddenly switches to obsessively accusing her of having sex with Baelish was very intense and emotionally complex, so it had to be filmed multiple times. A side result was that according to the script, Sansa had to physically eat a lemon cake on camera, so at multiple takes Sophie Turner ended up having to eat a large number of lemon cakes. It's a bit like the Hound in episode 1 of season 4 when he had to eat all those chickens and drink all that alcohol. Well, not alcohol, but he had to drink all that stuff. And Kate Dickey, who plays Lysa, said she doubts Turner has eaten one voluntarily since.
That's kind of stuff is going to be very annoying.
Yes. So, yeah. There's some stuff here about Oberyn's daughters, but I will address that later when it becomes relevant. Oh boy, when that becomes relevant. Oh yes, Tommen's coronation, is never actually mentioned in the novels, it just happens off screen. So they actually showed it here, and gave him the episode the first of his name title after that. But I think what was great that they showed it because it gave us that great scene with Cersei and Marjorie in relation to it. So when she says there's not a king in 50 years to deserve it, Joffrey ruled for barely 3 years and Robert Baratheon was a soldier that didn't know how to govern and was on the realm for 17 years, and before that was Mad King Aerys, who ruled for 20 years. So that means that before him would have been Aegon V, Aerys II's father, Jaehaerys, who was very poor health and died young, only 3 years on the throne. So Barristan remembers that he ruled well in that brief time. So the TV series continuity officially cut Jaehaerys, however, to streamline the Targaryen family tree. In the TV series, Aegon V was actually the Mad King's father, not his grandfather. So they've merged Aegon V and just Jaehaerys together. I'm sure at some point in House of the Dragon they may get to that. It would be interesting if they did. I think George R. R. Martin said that to satisfyingly tell the story that they're telling in that spin-off in the prequel, it would take 4 seasons. And I imagine after 4 seasons we may end up at that spot that Cersei was referencing. The last good king before Tommen. Or they may reinsert Jaehaerys, but I'm not sure. It depends on what canon they want to work with. Cersei refers to Joffrey as her firstborn son. So, in the books, that's correct. However, TV continuity. She was actually lying to Marjorie about that. Because if you remember in season 1, she had that conversation with Catelyn about her actual firstborn son with brown hair that she had with Robert that died. That was something that was added into the TV show. So either they've ignored it or Cersei is conveniently not mentioning it to Marjorie.
Best faith, I would say she's not telling Marjorie.
Yeah. So in this scene, that isn't an issue. You can best faith it. But I will just say, this plot point of her having a son before Joffrey that's brown-haired, it becomes an issue later down the line.
Oh boy. That's not good. That's not good.
Yes, because this is in the books she never had that son, and Joffrey, Tommen, and Marcella were the only ones she had. So we'll get to that later, when that becomes a bit of an oopsie.
Oopsie.
Yeah, because it worked well in the short term, because in that scene with Catelyn in season 1, it makes her a lot more sympathetic because she has a lost son.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it was a really good scene.
But do they account for that when it becomes relevant to make changes to, reference that? But we'll talk about that later. Of course. Oh yes, of course. I've got to mention as well. Like Tywin made that really good point about explaining to Cersei, we need the Tyrells in our family. We need Marjorie to marry Tommen because their crops are going to help us when the Iron Bank comes calling. That was also a great bit of context as well. It makes sense for Tywin, to become friendly with the Tyrells so that he can afford to pay his debts as the Lannisters are supposed to. That's their catchphrase in a way. The Lannister always pays his debts, so he needs to live up to that. So kind of it shows why he depends on the Tyrells in a way, and they also depend on him in some respects. Which sort of ties back to that scene from season 3 between Olenna and Tywin, where they talk about their marriage. Apparently, that scene with Oberyn and Cersei, it was filmed very late in the production, and it was the last scene that Pedro Pascal had to film for season 4. So after they said that's a wrap on him for that scene, he basically ripped his robe off and jumped into the water and had a swim. And Lena Headey wasn't allowed to because she still had other stuff to do, and she was jealous that he had a swim.
That's funny.
I'm free to do what I like. I'm going to have a swim. There is one little thing. It's not a major thing, but there is one little thing with that conversation between Arya and the Hound that they didn't account for, is that there is the possibility that Syrio Forel may have dropped his wooden sword and picked up a metal one off the ground, because he did knock out some of the other guards. They didn't talk about that, but that is a bit of a weird thing that they didn't. That's not mentioned conveniently.
Well, yeah, I would imagine she would have said he took on 3 people at once and won.
Yeah, I mean, and apparently Maisie Williams brought this up with the showrunners. She said, well, there's always the chance he could have picked up one of those swords off the ground that was actually steel. And apparently Dave and Dan just said to her, no, Syrio Forel's dead. Sorry. Ah, well. Poor girl. So yeah, in the books, instead of being his niece, he's actually passed off as a bastard daughter, and she calls herself Elaine Stone. And has her hair dyed black, or dark brown, to hide the fact that she's Sansa Stark. Yeah, Daenerys' forces do not capture any of Marines' navy in the books. Some of the ships were burned in the harbour by Daenerys' soldiers, and the rest fled. In this episode, her council states that they captured 93 Marinese warships, capable of transporting 100 soldiers each, and not including sailors. This entire little thing they did here, it basically cuts out an entire character. Because in A Dance with Dragons, there is a character named Victarion Greyjoy, who is related to Theon and Yara and Balon, who sails to Marine with a fleet of that number of ships and has not reached there yet, and nearly half of that fleet is lost on its way. So the idea is that Victarion Greyjoy is going to approach Daenerys with the idea of, I have the ships you need. But by having the Second Sons capture all these Marinese ships, that doesn't need to happen. And so Victarion Greyjoy doesn't exist in the TV show, which is a shame. Because Victarion Greyjoy is an interesting character, and it adds more Greyjoys to the whole storyline. But, you can't have nice things sometimes. Yeah, I remember too, like, when I skimmed through some not skimmed through, but I was reading through some chapters in the later books, and I was like, Victarion Greyjoy, who the fuck is that? And then I had to look him up, and I was like, oh my god, they cut him completely out of this. He just doesn't exist in the TV show at all. And that's not the last time that they fuck with the Greyjoys, I'll tell you that. Oh boy. Oh boy. I know you've seen a bit of season 8, so you might be aware of what I'm talking about, but they fuck hard with one of the Greyjoy characters.
Oh, I know. Oh, I know. I know.
Anyway, we'll get to that. In the 5th novel, Zaro Zoan Doxos, who is still alive, by the way, from Karth, offers Daenerys 13 ships, providing that she leaves Meereen, but she declines since that number of ships can carry only a fraction of the followers. So again, we have a whole storyline of all these people offering ships to her, because that's what she needs. And Zaro Zoan Doxos was another one that was going to offer her ships, because he wanted, you know, to seduce her. But instead, what they do is they fucking kill him and have her steal his ships instead. At the end of season 2. What a fuck up.
That story, I will never get over the fact that they just killed, you know, Guy from Tooth and Claw. Just his plan was so fucking strange. His plan was so fucking strange.
Yeah, because they did this stupid thing.
What an elaborate way to just trap someone.
Why did they have Pyat Pri play all of the warlocks? That was really weird. Like, he's supposed to be one of the warlocks, not all of them. So weird what they did with Karth. It's like, it's just bizarre. And now you're seeing the long-term consequences of that change and that decision to make Karth what is in the TV show.
Yeah,
Bloody hell. Bloody hell. Because as well, like, the whole struggle of escaping Meereen and then her overcoming that and taking the Unsullied from Astapor was such a massive moment for her, you know? Because she was literally on death row. But in the TV show, she isn't. She just has all the power, storms in, gets what she wants, leaves. Like, you know? Because she's just this force of nature, I guess. This episode does not explain the detail from the books about what Jorah says about a butcher named Cleon, who has taken over Astapor. Because that is to insinuate, oh, he's a violent man. But the actual truth is, he isn't called a butcher because he's very violent. Cleon is literally a butcher, like a common butcher of animal meat, before staging a coup and proclaiming himself king. The show added the detail that he styles himself His Imperial Majesty, so he might call himself an emperor in the TV continuity. But yeah, they cut out that detail of, like, ever since she's just left Astapor in the dust behind her, like, a common butcher has taken over the power, which kind of shows you what happens when you steal an entire army and you kill the slave master with Dragonfire. Yeah, Daenerys' storyline is such a mess. Oh my god. Anyway, viewership. I only have the overnight figures for this one. I couldn't find the overall. But, despite that, we have the highest viewing figures so far. 7.16 million overnight. We have broken the 7. Last time it was 6.95 and now we're at 7.16, so we're at the highest point so far.
It's going to keep rising, I imagine, for a while.
It is rising and rising and rising. Give your conclusion and rating out of 10 for First of His Name.
I think last 10 minutes were excellent. I think the other, I'd say about 90% of it was very good. And then there was about 10%, which was pretty much just the Marine scene and the bits here and there that were not so great. I think if the last 10 minutes wasn't as good as it was, this would probably be a 7. But because of that, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I think that last 10 minutes was excellent, and that really does bump it up for me because I think it was so well executed, and the choreography was also something we didn't mention really, but it was also really good. Performances were all excellent throughout the entire episode, but in particular, the last 10 minutes were very, very fucking good.
Yeah, not just the choreography and, like, it didn't have any stinky plot armor, but also the actual prosthetics of the deaths as well.
I mean, yeah, that shot of, you know, the sword going through the back of the head is a pretty shocking visual, and it looks great.
and also the visual of Locke, his literal head being fucking pushed off his shoulder, and you can see his collarbone sticking out of his skin. It was so brutal.
Looks very good. So yeah, say the last 10 minutes does really bump up this episode because it was just very, 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 very well done. So,
yeah, I mean, the Crastus Keep stuff was amazing, and then the Marine stuff was really disappointing. And then everything else was just really solid, so it kind of balances out. And I think the Game of Thrones balance standard that we seem to have established over the first 4 seasons is 8 out of 10. Because that just seems to be this is what your standard Game of Thrones episode will be, you know, is 8 out of 10. That sort of level of quality. The Crassus Keep stuff would, you know, in a normal earlier season episode, bump it up maybe to a 9. But then the Marine stuff has the capability to drag it down to a 7. So I think 8 out of 10 makes sense. I think it's a good number to use for this one. That sounds right in my head. First of his name gets an 8 out of 10. So yes, we are halfway through season 4 now. How does it feel?
It feels like there's some really excellent stuff throughout with a couple of leaky holes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it kind of feels like right now, this season.
And sort of,
it's got some of my favourite parts and some of my least favourite parts of the show so far.
Yeah. So what do you sort of anticipate for the second half of season 4, and specifically the next episode, which is called The Laws of Gods and Men?
I have a feeling it's going to be a big one, that next one. Because it really should be. Because obviously with the last 10 minutes of this feeling pretty big, I feel like now, second half really needs to start off with like something. We want to get King's Landing moving now, because we've been in the same position since episode 2. With characters sort of, they're developing, but the situation around them is sort of stagnant right now. It really feels like it needs to start, you know, getting going now. Everything else I think is naturally moving forward. I think everything with in the North is excellent. I'm really loving this. The North, especially this season, I'm really loving everything to do with that this season. Mm-hmm. And I think everything else is pretty darn solid right now. So just think King's Landing as a setting, I want it to start moving forward now. Yeah. And hopefully it will next episode.
There's also a couple of storylines we haven't seen in a while. We haven't seen Stannis and we haven't seen Reek. Those two storylines mainly.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
I mean, we have seen Locke, who's part of the Bolton storyline, but he kind of joined up with the Wall. But we haven't seen specifically, you know, Ramsay, Roose Bolton, Reek, that side, and we haven't seen the Stannis, Davos, Melisandre stuff for quite a while either. But it's interesting because in this episode, we heard Tywin and Cersei speak very specifically about what the Iron Bank is. And given that we know that Stannis and Davos are headed to the Iron Bank, that adds a really good bit of world building to set up whatever they're going to do. With when they eventually go there, because if we see Stannis and Davos go to the Iron Bank, we know what it's all about going into it based on what Tywin explained to us about it, which is really smart. Really smart to have that explanation about what the Iron Bank is take place before we see potentially Stannis have to actually deal with it. I think that's a really smart move. So yeah, and just praying to God that anything in Marine actually gives us something to chew on. Because the only massive positive I can say so far for season 4 with Daenerys' storyline is they established the repackaged Dario Naharis pretty well in episodes 1 and 3. Looking forward to it. Next time we have season 4, episode 6, which is called The Laws of Gods and Men. We've heard that phrase used before, and we're going to hear it used again. We will see you all next time. Bye-bye.